Good morning. Hi, good morning, and thank you for joining SOMCON in today's discussion on global terroir. I am Michelle Meter, the director of SOMCON, and pleased to be joined here today with exceptional producers and innovators in our industry. This session is possible through the support of the Tasting Panel and the SOM Journal, who we've teamed up with to create the SOM Relief Project, designed to help both nonprofit organizations as well as individual members of our wine community by the COVID-19 pandemic. Because of the generosity of the Tasting Panel, the SOM Journal, the Banfi Foundation, and the Boisset Collection, along with individual contributions made during registration for this session, we're excited to send our first donation to the United Sommeliers Foundation and want to thank you all for making that possible. For more information on the SOM Relief Project and to learn how to apply, please visit somconusa.com. Couple of housekeeping items. Throughout the discussion, feel free to chat with our panel by utilizing the chat function, or if there is a question you want addressed and answered during our live Q&A, please feel free to add that to the Q&A box, and we'll put those questions in front of our panel at the end of our discussion at about 10 o'clock Pacific time. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Lars Light, Vice President of Education and Communications for the SOM Journal, who will be guiding today's discussion and introducing our panel. Lars, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's wonderful to be here. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the SOM Journal and the Tasting Panel magazine, I want to thank everybody for being here and for joining us. These are certainly uncertain times for all of us, but we at the SOM Journal believe that this is the moment to invest in improving ourselves, in continuing our education, because you never stop learning in life, to ponder carefully how we can best prepare ourselves for the future that's to come. And that future certainly would bring many changes, so we need to improve ourselves for it. As Friedrich Nietzsche said famously, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. I think that's very appropriate in these times. So as we dive into this seminar, by now, I think we all know the definition of terroir and its importance in winemaking. But in the context of this post-COVID market that we're going to face, I truly believe that the unique terroir of a wine is what will help it survive and thrive in the new conditions that lay ahead of us. We've all been doing some takeout. We've been improving our cooking skills at home. We probably have been raiding the cellar if you're like me. Just maybe we've been drinking a little more than usual. So when we do get back to a new routine, maybe we're going to look and say it's time to hit the gym. Maybe, unfortunately, not dine out as much. Even more unfortunately, maybe drink a little less. So when we do that, why would we settle for the ordinary? It's the extraordinary, I believe, that will be the shining light of our future. Why ship ordinary wines around the country or around the world unless they truly have something unique to say? They bring us a special experience, offer us a one-of-a-kind taste, and speak of a sense of place. So that's what today's discussion is all about. And we have some of the wine world's best assembled here to speak of their sense of place, their corner of the world, and the special wine that comes from it. So let's start with the man that's actually braving the elements, sitting out in the sunshine in his own special place, Charlie Segaletos from Klein. Charlie, I think you, like me, grew up with a little bit of a European background. I had a German dad and an Italian mom. You had an Italian mom and a Greek dad. So that definitely brings wine culture to the table. You perfected your skills at Davis, worked your way through different industry positions in winemaking, joined Klein in 2002. You have a keen philosophy about working closely with vineyard managers and growers to maximize flavor concentration and then tailor what you do in the winemaking to really highlight that. And I think that's extremely important, and I applaud you for that. So could you please give us a little bit of background on your winery, on its history, on its terroir, and frankly, where are you sitting? Where did Charlie go? Charlie, you need to unmute. Somebody unmute Charlie, please.
I think it's, I think
there we go.
me or
You're back.
Okay, got me? Okay, I'm sitting in front of one of our Chardonnay vineyards with a weed whacker going in the background. Sorry about that, guys. But I'm sitting in front of one of our Chardonnay home ranch vineyards where the winery is located. We're in the southern tip of Sonoma County, in the southern tip of Sonoma Valley, and in an AVA called Los Carneros. We're about an hour north of San Francisco. You know, I've been, yeah, like you said, Lars, my dad, Greek-American, mom, Italian-American, always wine on the table, which is wonderful. After leaving UC Davis, I've worked my way like so many winemakers through a number of positions at different wineries, gaining knowledge. And I ended up here about 19 years ago. So I've got a little experience with some of the grapes we're growing here. To give you a little bit of history of the winery, because it's a pretty interesting history. Fred Klein, who I went to school with, actually started his winery in, can you guys hear over that thing? I'm sorry, I can't flag him down.
I don't hear the weed whacker.
But Fred Klein, in the early 80s, learned wine, grandparents, and you guys have ever sat in a hot tub ship Fred and Klein Winery, because his grandparents were Valeriano and Giuseppe Jacuzzi. You know, they were at company. There were 7 brothers and 6 sisters who were responsible for a lot of innovation, including the hot tub. There was an in-home personal spa that they patented back in the 50s. But the key thing was Fred moved to this little town from Los Angeles. He moved to a town called Oakley, which is just in the southern part of, just south of the Sacramento Delta, that area of waterways. Those big rivers, California big rivers, have deposited literally 30 feet sand there in Contra Costa County. And planted there are 100-year-old Mourvedre and Carignan and Zinfandel vines. And that's kind of where Fred got his start, learned how to make wine with grandpa. And we're still farming 200 acres there in Contra Costa, and it's the base of our Ancient Vine series wines. Now, in 1989, Fred developed it into a winery. The Carneros region itself is known for a couple things. It's a very cool region. I don't know if you can see behind me, but it's not at all uncommon to have fog rolling over these Sonoma Coast mountains here, and they'll sit on the vines. Oftentimes till noon. We've got the Pacific Ocean behind me to the west. We've got the San Pablo Bay to my south, and both of those things have a very cooling influence on this region. In addition to that, we get a steady wind in the afternoon as that Central Valley heats up, and it brings that cool ocean air through this area. So this area, it's known for producing wines with lively acids, bright flavors. You know, it's known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay production. Much that if you go back to the 90s, we had 5 different sparkling wines through Pinot Noir.
Lars, this is Michelle. I'm going to interject. We're having some real problems with Charlie's audio. So I've just muted Charlie. And if we could maybe move to the next panelist and come back to Charlie, we'll send him and see if he can work on his audio a little bit. Everyone's having a rough time with it.
Great. Not to quote a tuna commercial, but sorry, Charlie. Nobody else would probably remember that, but Google it. All right, so up next we have Tim Henley, who's coming to us from Washington State. Tim, you've worked throughout Washington State at various wineries, and you're part of the Pacific Rim group, and I kind of view you as, I don't know if I'd call you a knight in shining armor, but maybe a knight in red armor. You brought a red wine culture to a real Riesling-centric wine house. You started with the Silver Totem Washington State Cabernet, and now you've gone with this really super premium wine that we're going to talk about today, thick-skinned. Your focus here is Red Mountain, and Red Mountain is it's one of the newer AVAs in the world, started in 2001, but it's actually the 5th oldest in Washington State, which speaks a lot for the dynamics of that terroir, how it's growing, how it's developing. Can you tell us a little bit about Red Mountain, where it's located, and how it compares to some of those other appellations in the state?
Absolutely, Lars, and thanks for having me. Washington State as a whole is I would say fairly new in the global wine scene. Back in 1975, with a majority of the plantings, including the ones we work with, taking place in the 80s and 90s. So, not an extremely old vineyard site. And if I can make this share screen work here, we'll try to get you a visual of where we are. And I also want to point out, as you probably accidentally said, Washington State. And one of the things I found, I was born and raised, started my career in California, I've been up in Washington now for a significant period of time. And states that you need to put the word state after, thanks to Washington, D.C., right? So when people say Washington, they think the federal government, they think D.C., so we have the unique distinction of having to say state. But did the screen share come up?
Maybe we should say the good
there
Washington.
You go. the happy Washington. So you said you can see the map of the state there?
I don't see it.
Oh, wait. Yeah, you know what? There's one more button to hit. Let's try that.
There you go.
So
something
you can see the state there. We've got the big kind of triangle region in the middle, and that's the overarching region, right? That's the Columbia Valley. And zoom in here. And the eastern or western edge of the valley. So that little angle that we're zooming in there is Red Mountain. And even though it's the Yakima Valley, which is a cool growing region, Red Mountain is kind of this isolated island. It's off by itself, and it actually has two gaps on either side of it. And so you'll see that it gets a very unique weather pattern. The vineyards are all southwestern facing slopes, gets a lot of daytime sun, a lot of warmth, average daytime temperatures, and I'm going to try to convert everything to metric, but average daytime temperatures are, I believe, 32 C. So warmer site for the state. And let's see. And there actually, I don't know if I shared correctly or not. Hopefully we switched to a photo of Red Mountain itself.
Not yet.
All right. We'll figure this out, Lars, as I'm talking to you. So
we're all working our way through these technical difficulties.
Right. Well, and lack of Zoom. This is actually my second Zoom meeting in my entire career. So
there it is.
There we go. So you can see one of the iconic features of the mountain is the fact that it is part of this range, but you can see the gaps on either side of it there. And so as the mountain warms up during the summer, you will actually it creates its own weather pattern. It creates a zone of heat, and the cooler air from the rivers and the storms that may come over from the Cascades and the west side of the state, a lot of times end up actually splitting around the mountain. So I think that and the geology behind it are what made it deserving of its own unique appellation. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Charlie,
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask we've got a beautiful bird's eye view here. If I was driving by there without being able to look, and if I was looking up at Red Mountain, what would strike me from that position?
I think it depends on where you come from in the world. Growing up next to the Sierra Nevada mountain range, when I moved up to Washington, I looked at it and said, that's a mountain. That's a big hill. But it really is. I mean, you start hiking around it and you get a better sense of the elevation. It's 150 meters going up to 460 meters. So there is some elevation there. But yeah, driving by, you see the vineyards, you see the lush green area that's farmed down below. And, you start getting a sense of the place of what this particular mountain is. And the winery is actually located on the backside of that mountain. So it's
cool.
It's a 10-minute drive from where I'm sitting currently to the vineyards we source from.
Now, we're seeing a nice spread of vineyards here. How far is it from east to west? And what are some of the differences in each of those different vineyard parcels?
Right. So you've got, you're gonna test my memory here, Lars, but it's a fairly good stretch from looking at that photo from the left side to the right. Easily a 5 to 10 minute drive from one side to the other, if you could. The road actually ends about midway through that photo right there.
Yep. See that?
And yeah. So a lot of those vineyards on the left-hand side, you really can't access. We source from the right-hand side there. And the middle band of the mountain where a majority of those vineyards are, you actually have a very similar soil structure right there, a lot of sandy loams. There's a soil type called Warden and a soil type called Hessel. We source the Heart of the Hill vineyard where we pull from is actually, it's Hessel is the main vineyard type or soil type. And if I could, again, let me see if I can pull this off. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, is there a big variation from each of the different soil types, or is it pretty uniform in that one?
So Warden and Hessel, not a significant difference. You get down to the third soil type, which is Scutiny, and it does have a lot of, we call it caliche, but it's a lot of calcium-based soils. So, but those will be mostly down on the flats. Are you seeing a soil picture right now?
Yes, I assume it's soil.
All right, so this is Hessel, and if this works, you can actually see, so it looks sort of like a sandstone.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it's gonna let me, well, anyway, if you were to rub up against it, you can actually break that off extremely easily. You know, so it's a very crumbly, loose soil profile.
Friable,
very friable. But one of the unique things about the mountain also is even though some of the soils are deeper in profile, it's very low rainfall, 15 centimeters a year, most of which comes in winter. And so you end up, the grower has possibly a larger foot or thumbprint than in some other regions throughout the world. You know, the vine roots tend to stay in those top 1 to 3 meters.
Now this is a small region. If I saw a note here from my colleague Jesse at the Somm Journal, who mentioned that it's actually Washington's smallest appellation. But you're choosing to make a Bordeaux blend. So what is growing? What varieties are you finding grow best there, or is it a good mix that brings them all together?
So Red Mountain's a strong region for Cabernet Sauvignon, but all the Bordeaux varieties do well there. You've also got a strong presence of Syrah. And there are some guys doing Bordeaux whites, Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc. So you see a wide mix of grapes. Actually, you know what? We do source a tiny bit of Gewürztraminer from there as well. So, you know, Washington's, we have the ability, I think, to grow a little bit of everything. But reds, Bordeaux reds in particular, do extremely well there. Cabernet is very strong, likes the soils. And the wine we were working with, thick-skinned, started off, you know, we realized Cabernet needed to be the base, but we wanted to make wine that was a little more approachable. So we knew we needed to blend into it. Originally, the idea was Merlot and Syrah, and it didn't really work. As we continued to experiment, we ended up realizing that Malbec was a key component for us. In addition to that, we top noted it with Petit Verdot. And all of this was done over the course, I think we first started working with the fruit back in 2012 with the release of the one in 2015. So there were several years in there with small lot experimentation, just seeing what worked for the wine and for the brand.
So Charlie, Tim, my last question for you is kind of just on the significance of that name, thick-skinned. What's that? I mean, that portends something.
Right, absolutely. So thick skin refers to the grape's natural defense, which is the skin of the grape itself. That's how it's protecting itself from the elements, from predators. So it's in reference to that. One of the dynamics of Red Mountain is between the southwestern exposure, the almost constant presence from the Yakima Valley. you do end up with this need of the plant and the fruit to develop this thicker skin on the grapes. So it's a reference to that.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much. Appreciate that, Tim.
Happiness.
Excellent. And I see it looks like Charlie has moved inside, maybe to a stronger Wi-Fi signal. Should we go back and try to Charlie to pick it up where he left off?
Sure. Did I leave you with Los Carneros, named after the ram? We were farming about 150 acres in Los Carneros. We farm a little bit further west in an even cooler region, but the Los Carneros region, where the winery is located, it became an AVA in 1983. There were kind of two key features. One is that the fog rolls over the hill over those Sonoma Mountains and cools that vineyard in the mornings. And then in the afternoon, as the Central Valley heats up, we get that cool maritime breeze blowing from the Pacific all the way through and over those vines and cooling it yet again. So it's a region that vines that are real efficient users of sunshine, like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, do really well at. And that's why we had in the 80s, we had 5 different sparkling wine houses making sparkling wine in and around this region. You okay? Are you hearing me okay? Well,
decently.
Recently, the Los Carneros region is one of the oldest. It's been called the oldest growing region in California, planted in 1830, some of those grapes. Fred Klein started his winery in the early 80s, making wine from Contra Costa County, old vines, 100-year-old vines, deep sandy soil there on their own roots that are protected from phylloxera. When we farm, we're farming without using any pesticides or herbicides. We do a lot of composting of the olive press that we operate. We take all of the olive refuse and take care of that. We do wood chipping, all the cuttings and pumice, everything from around the winery also goes into that compost pile. We use that. We've got a flock of 4,000 sheep out there, Whiteface and Suffolk, and they're out eating 10 acres of weeds at a time. They're electric fenced in, and we've got Great Pyrenees protecting them from the coyotes. We grind up oyster shells and crab shells, and that supplies both calcium and chitin to the soil there. And chitin we introduce encourages chitin eating bacteria, which then do a job on nematodes and certain types of fungus and things. So we're just trying to do the right thing in terms of winemaking. Yeah. In terms of winemaking,
how does that terroir manifest itself in the wine glass?
Well, you know what? These vines struggle. The soils themselves, if you look at the valley floor of Los Carneros, it's mostly a clay, a hard pan and a clay, so those vines really struggle there. You get up onto the hillsides, and it's all a product of volcanic tectonic plate activity. Those are called the Sonoma volcanics. That soil is thin, really well drained. Both of those soil types make it a rough go for the grapes, so we don't get big yields, but we get grape flavors. We get light acids because it's so cool, and we just get I'm drinking our Los Carneros Syrah right now, and it's just dark as can be. It's 100% Syrah, but it's boysenberry and black pepper, just great concentration. Yeah, so that's what we expect. And out of our Chardonnay, we expect a nice high acid and bright tropical flavor and a lot of citrus too. In the winery, some of the things we do uniquely, I think, or some of the things we've adopted is we don't use any enzymes. We try and settle properly, so no settling enzymes. When it comes to determining how much tannin we want to keep in those red wines, we use no fining agents at all. I'll taste, along with the rest of the winemaking team, we'll taste through every fermenter every day. And if it comes time to got enough tannin, we'll press the wine off. So we don't use egg whites or gelatin or isinglass, no protein fining agents. So the wines are all vegan. And then on the winery, we've been relying on natural yeast, which has been working out real well. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Sorry we had to move you inside, but thanks for doing that. Little dicey. I apologize to everybody for the dicey audio. But we're going to take a trip sort of a little bit further around the globe and go to Uruguay, where we've got Christian Wiley. Christian, you a lot of your winemaking experiences in South America and Chile and Uruguay, but you're a Davis guy. You're a Davis graduate, which is very cool. You're a wine traveler, obviously a passionate guy. So tell us a little bit about Bodega Garzón and Uruguay. I don't think a lot of us know a lot about Uruguay. It's a new prospect for us.
Well, first of all,
Unmute
thanks very
yourself.
much, Michelle and Lars. Is the audio okay?
It's perfect.
Good. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Well, yes, as you said, I'm from Chile. Studied agronomy and viticulture and enology, and finished studying in UC Davis, so alumni. And I've worked most of my life, the last 25 years, in wineries and vineyards in South America, with a little bit of experience in the States and Europe as well. The reason for me for Uruguay is love. I met my wife here 22 years ago. I'll show you the talent behind the scenes, including my doctor, Juanito. Sorry, just to give you a little bit of a break there with all the technicalities. But I broke my leg, so doing my best here. I met my wife here in Punta del Este, which is like if you like, it would be like the Miami or the Ibiza of South America. And I ended up working here with a great family between the year 2000 and 2005. Then I went back to Chile and made wine in Chile and Argentina with the Larraín family. And now for the last 5 years, I've been working for and with Mr. Bulgeroni, Don Alejandro. It's a family business, family run, with an incredible vision, if you like, and commitment to long-term and the environment. What's really revolutionary, and it's very young, and there's a ton of energy and passion here, is this place called Garzón, which pretty much became a spectacular 21st century terroir. We've basically gone from not the best pastures, the highest mountains of Uruguay. Being from Chile, 500 meters doesn't really impress me very much. But you know, Uruguayans, when they drive up to the winery, they start plucking their ears, and they have altitude problems. Basically what happened was Don Alejandro and his wife, the municipality of Garzón. Garzón is it's a place, it's a municipality on the south, on the beach, on the Atlantic. It has an amazing hippie chic town called Jose Ignacio, world-class tourists. It's like Saint-Tropez or the Hamptons, if you like. And on the north part of the municipality, it has Las Sierras, the hills, and the little town of Garzón, which is super quaint and a destination for art lovers and foodies, gastronomy followers, especially of Francis Malman, who's the top chef in the region. What happened was Don Alejandro started growing olive trees, about 20 different varieties, and producing extra virgin olive oil, top class in the world. And then he bought this hill, which is basically a massive boulder of granite, the oldest granite in the planet, for windmills, for clean energy. He's in the energy business, and he's been leading all the clean energy and sustainability projects for the last 2 decades. He's the ultimate expert in the region. But his wife, Bettina, challenged the idea of putting massive windmills on the top of this lovely hill that she had the view from the house in the olive groves and the golf course and all that. So he basically had to figure out what to do with the land. He'd already purchased it. And he asked the agronomists, what can I do? And they basically said, well, sir, you know, it's a rock. It has El Monte, which is the Uruguayan fauna, which is very thick. It's amazing biodiversity. There's a lot of birds, ostriches, there's capybara, there's wild boars, etc. And it's facing due south, exposed directly to the winds from the Atlantic. I'm going to try and show you a picture here. I have no idea if this is going to work, but doing my best here. I only have one in case it doesn't work. I think it's on.
Okay, we got it.
So what, can you see the mouse? On the horizon is the Atlantic Ocean. And if you had amazing view, another 5,000 kilometers, you could see Antarctica. So we're facing due south. We get very cold breezes. And this is only 10 miles. The winery is at about 200 meters high. And those 200 meters are basically from the base of the vineyards, straight up. What Don Alejandro did was, because of the agronomist said it could, the only thing so rustic that could survive here were vines. You know, he interviewed with a couple of the top winemakers around the world, and he made a really good chemistry with Alberto Antonini. So Alberto spent Easter of 2007 studying this place, which until then, there were no crops, maybe a few sheep pasturing, and started checking all the facts. And basically it's 34 latitudes south, which puts it in the premium wine belt of the southern hemisphere, places like Apalta, like Gualtallari, like Barossa, with the Atlantic influence and the cool climate. So, you know, very good for wines with balance and freshness, and which makes it much more European, if you like, in the style. The rainfall here is actually, on average, is higher than Bordeaux, but we do have the sunshine of the New World and the amount of days of light to have that the brilliant fruit. So he put all these concepts together, and he actually thought it was because of the granite, because of the balasto, the meteorized granite, and the Atlantic. He kind of pictured similarities with Rías Baixas, with Galicia. And he basically went back to Alejandro. He said, yeah, I think we could make wine here. So I suggest we do a little trial. But Mr. Bulgaroni is an important businessman, and he said, okay, if you say so, let's plant 500 acres, which was a different concept when it came to trials or experiments, what Alberto had done in the past. But anyway, they went full on, and what you see here behind the winery is all the parcels. It's about 2/3 of the vineyards, and it's all the parcels facing north. What they did plant, they started planting was north-facing vineyards for reds, south-facing vineyards exposed to the Atlantic for whites. The main varieties, Uruguay is the Tanat country. We figured out that the coastal conditions, as well as the amazing percolation and drainage and the hillside, because of the granite, we were going to be able to farm properly Tanat, and that's the main red variety. We also have Cap Franc, we have Marcelin, we have Petit Verdot, we have Pinot Noir. And on the whites, with the similarity of Galicia, and our agronomist, Eduardo Felix, who's from Uruguay, had a little bit of experience before in another appellation. Alvarinho became a #1 great variety on whites. We also have Viognier, Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, Petit Manseng. Lars, this is an experiment. There's more than 20 great varieties.
Yeah, you guys are clearly pioneers. So my big question to you is, what would you define? What have you discovered to be the terroir of this area, and how does that express itself in the glass? To sum it up.
Yeah, well, it's spectacular in the sense that it adds up or agglomerates great things from different places. And in the glass, you feel the energy, you feel the tension, the vibrancy, as Antonini likes to call it. It's not so concentrated as normal New World. It's much more the texture, and there's very fresh natural acidity all across the range. You find the wines come across with a very high drinkability. So if you like, they're more European in that sense, and this for me would be a terroir that it's a bit of a bridge from New World desert climates like, you know, California or my port, Chile, Argentina, and appellations in Europe. I believe the wines are very easy to drink. They work really well with food, and And to sum it up, I'm drinking this Pinot Noir Rosé for 2020. We finished the harvest, and this is so fresh, you have no idea. It's done really well. We also do Magnums because of all of the, you know, all the hippie chic people on the beach, and people like, I'm trying to go back to the Zoom here. That's another picture? I don't know if you can see it. No.
Not yet.
All right.
But you just finished harvest under quarantine conditions. That's impressive.
Yes, sir. Because we have all this rainfall and it's Atlantic, it's super unpredictable. And we have variation like Bordeaux. It's similar weather to Bordeaux. This year, fortunately, we were coasting. I mean, seriously, Germán, the winemaker, is a top surfer. He was hitting the waves. I try. I'm not very good at it, but we were so happy. You know, spring was perfect. Not too windy, not too rainy. The summer was dry and cool. Very cool nights. So everything was coming in, rolling in, fantastic. This Pinot we picked at the end of January. It's also the base for our Methode Champenoise. And then some more in February to give it a bit more of body.
That's awesome.
We were already talking a lot with our, you know, clients in China. What the hell's going on? In, you know, end of January, beginning of February. Friends in Italy, Mr. Bulgaroni has vineyards in 6 countries. And they were relaying the problems, and friends in Milan and Lombardia. So we kind of came out early with a very drastic, if you like, protocols. I think people finally kind of figured out my hairstyle. They all thought I was nuts. just went out, you know, full on at the beginning of March. Guys, we need to shut down hospitality. We need to close the restaurant. Like, you know, Francis Malman was in town. We were able to negotiate to do the harvest party, which was March 7 at the town of Garzón. We had about 300 people. After that, we shut down. We wanted to protect our team and obviously our guests from contagion. And we went full on with all the protocols that you probably have read about, you know, distancing at work. I'll give you 2 or 3 of the ones that you probably won't have to deal with in the Northern Hemisphere. One of them, this is so isolated, this vineyard. We are at least 1 hour's drive for our workers to get to pick, and they come in buses. So, you know, at 4:30 a.m., sterilize the bus, use the alcohol and gel, spray it at the bus. Everybody has a mask, everybody has the gloves, all the windows down, and they're driving. The 3rd day, we saw a video. All of them, they published on Facebook, some of the growers. And they were having their mate in the morning, and they were sharing the straw. So we had to make kind of signs and T-shirts, no comparta la bombilla. And then social distancing at work and handpicking the vineyards and the winery stuff. So we made the signs of, you know, two carpinchos away, 2 capivaras. They're about 1 meter long, so, you know, they understood. But we had a lot of issues towards the end. Thank God it was a good climate. The fruit came in beautiful. I've never seen, I've done now 5 vintages in Garzón. I've never seen this quality, this level of cleanliness, a crispiness. You could see all across the range. So
well, it's great to hear something good coming out of 2020 finally, Christian. So thank you for sharing that.
Lars, can I interject?
Please.
Lars, can I interject too? Just really quickly, Christian, and also for the members of our panel, if you can also make sure that you have your chat function up. We have a lot of questions that are coming in for your specific wineries and regions that you can also start to answer some of the questions that, you know, that our attendees are asking.
Which we will definitely hope to get to. We've got to keep moving along here because we've got a whole ocean to cross to get to Burgundy. And they're sitting right in his vineyards, it would appear, is a man who is absolutely a product of the terroir itself. born in Vougeot and talking to us today about Vougeot and the Vougeray. Jean-Charles, welcome. Thank you for being here.
We're thrilled, Lars, and, it's fabulous to see such a great group of panelists and to see all the beautiful Michelle, of course, and so many great participants because we love all the Psalms in the world.
Absolutely. So you grew up in this place where the term terroir arguably was, if not invented, certainly started being talked up. The sense of place that came out of Burgundy. And so you grew up, you had a very keen sense for that. You've sort of transferred that whole idea around the world to your different ventures, your different wineries. But one of the key things that you've been doing is biodynamic farming. Tell us how that got into your brain and how you translated into your vineyards and wineries.
Absolutely, Lars. So the beauty is I was born literally where I am, looking at the chateau, which was obviously built in the 11th century onwards by the monks. So I definitely a product of the terroir, which I believe I'm a terrorist or terroirist, as we say, in many ways, really thinking that the sense of place, the alchemy of the plant, the weather, and obviously the soil, including the passion of the people, is essential. So this is really what we've done, obviously, in Burgundy for many centuries. But we realized with Domaine de la Vougeray, which is basically headquartered in Vougeot, where I am right now, Vougeray for Vougeot, for this amazing place, which is the Clos de Vougeot Blanc, where we are, which is the only white, the diamond among the rubies. And we realized when we started this estate with my sister in 1999, which is our finest venture in the world of wine, 58 hectares, Grand Cru, Premier Cru, Côte de Nuit, Côte de Beaune. And the whole idea was we realized the soil, even in Vougeot, can you believe it, was very compacted and was actually not giving as much as we were hoping. So we worked very closely with the University of Dijon and realized that the soil was really inactive. So we decided to reintroduce horse plowing. And at the same time, luckily, thanks to my grandmother's influence, who was a wonderful school teacher, we reintroduced composting, a whole varieties of composting techniques, which is not only from horses, but cows and all what constitute the terroir. So we're part of an organization in Burgundy, which is called Geste, where we do over 18 different compost recipes in order to really fit the terroir. We reintroduced horse plowing, very important for terroir, where really the expression of the plant and the soil really works together. And obviously we pushed what we call massal selection. So when you observe a plant from the area, you replant that plant. Whether you all know the DNA or not, it does not really matter. Observation, 5 years, go to Ontave in Montpellier, get it approved and replant it within that same terroir. So there's no deviation, Lars, possibly of what you could think. And this is really what we believe a terroir approach should be, is very loyal, very authentic, very faithful to the sense of place. Hence, obviously, what Burgundy makes it so interesting. What we did as well, Lars, as a conclusion to this, or an evolution, is we introduced organic and biodynamic farming everywhere we operate. Burgundy, Beaujolais, Rhône, south of France, obviously with Deloach Vineyards very close to Charlie's place where we are in the Russian River. Raymond, 300 acres organically certified as well. And we really believe, Michelle and Lars, as your question is very opportune today, that all of us should farm organically and biodynamically. Our certification are obtained very quickly, and it allows you to make magical wines. Wine with energy, wine with vibration, wine with radiation, wine with telluric and cosmic energy. So what we say in France, the je ne sais quoi, is really produced thanks to this alchemy that is so magical. So as you know, I'm a big environmentalist in that sense because all our wineries are equipped with bioclimatic conditions, very similar to what Christian showed us here in Uruguay, from solar panels to alternative energy to everything else. I feel all of us in the world of wine and all the Psalms who are doing a spectacular job today ought to promote really that purity in wine that makes the wine world so exciting and obviously so magical, and why we all in it together.
Amen. Very good point. It seems like innovation as well as just a lot of common sense to bring the land alive. So that's great. Speaking of innovation, so in these days where we're all concerned about what's going on, wineries have had to face tasting rooms being shut down, the on-premise is paralyzed, even the off-premise is trying to find different ways to move on. We know that you've done some more innovation in those terms as well with your Boisset collection. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how you're addressing the consumer as well as the trade in these challenging times?
Absolutely. And we had to, because, you know, to all the Psalms, and I know many of over the 300 Psalms here on the participation, over 60% of our global business ourselves is really restaurant, brasserie, bars, clubs, and hotels. So very luckily, years ago, we started an amazing program named the Ambassador Program. And this is why Marnie is with us as a fantastic Psalm and a writer and part of the whole Psalm community that Michel leads us so well with. And we started this program where we allow everyone to start a business in the world of wine. We have thousands of ambassadors around the United States specifically who can promote wine and make money out of it. So this is why during this tough time, Lars, as all our tasting rooms are closed and a lot of the restaurants are basically not operating, we said to all the people in the trade, and this is the beautiful ad Michel allowed us to run in the magazine, is to say, join us, be part of it. You have a great circle of friends. You have a lot of relationship. You're great creators of wine. Build a wine business independent of your restaurant. And I think what Marnie will tell us shortly about is all that is, it's so important, Lars, that all of us manage a flexible workplace. Yes, we have a job at the restaurant or at the hotel, but at the same time, we have a lot of contacts and knowledge that we need to leverage. So we created this program, and I'm so pleased because it's really encompassing the world of wine. Anybody can be part of it. The minimum requirement is a basic $300 investment of a few wines and a few wine glasses that most of you have. And you can be part of this, ambassador program. So Lars, as you asked me, the most proud I am of anything we've done in the wine world is really being open to everyone, irrelevant of which channel of distribution you're involved, irrelevant of anything. You have a little bit of knowledge, you have friends, and you can promote wine. And I really feel that's the future, because as much as we love to make great wines, we eventually need to sell them. And they need to be drank, and they need to be enjoyed. Even Clos de Vougeot Blanc, which is the iconic wine that we serve at the Vatican, and all great Psalms on it, having on their 3-star, 2-star Michelin list, people still need to buy it. So I really believe having great sommelier promoting fine wine is a true treasure for everyone on the panel here who are making great wines, from California to Uruguay to Washington States to obviously tequila in Mexico and everything else. And Italy, we need great Psalms. And that's why I'm so pleased to see you, Lars, leading with the Psalm Journal, this great circle of 30, 40, 50,000 friends that are really passionate about wine. Because terroir, remember my definition, it's the soil, the plant, the weather, the passion of the people. Without the people, we don't have any wine world, and there's nothing else. And I say that with my friend Christian. We've been friends of 20 years. We've partied at Punta del Este, and Jacob and many of you. This is what it's all about. And I'm so glad that Michel and you, Lars, and Marnie has joined us to really do just this, is to really encourage everyone of a greater wine world, enjoying, drinking, teaching, and eloquently giving the electric magnetic passion that we all have.
Well, as they say in the Vatican when they drink your Blanc, amen, brother. So thank you, John Charles.
Lars, is every sin, as you do many yourself, as I know you well, you are forgiven of all your sins, because this is the sign of the monks. From the 11th century, they've forgiven you.
That's going to take a few barrels, I'm afraid, but
Well, we look forward to sharing them with you.
thank you, JC. And I know that Marnie's going to be here for the Q&A afterwards, maybe address some of the details of the ambassador program too. But
and forgive me, I'm getting on with a whole group of a few hundred Psalms in France in about a few minutes, so don't feel that I'm escaping. Michel, we love you, and you look gorgeous even on screen. And thank you for putting this together. And to all the panelists, thank you for making great wines. We love your wine and you even more. Bonsoir and have a great time.
Merci, JC. Au revoir.
Merci. All the best.
Thank you. So we're going to stay in Europe, and we're going to just cross the Alps a little bit and go into the area known as Franciacorta, where my dear friend Jacob Bragg is going to talk to us. Jacob's had quite an illustrious career, starting at 16 years old in kitchens, worked his way onto the floor, became one of the youngest advanced sommeliers at 24 years old in 2009. There, Jacob, I've dated you. But he's going to tell us about the lovely terroir of Franciacorta. Jacob, tell us a little bit. I think we all know a little something about Franciacorta, but again, it's one of those areas where I don't think we know enough. I had the good fortune of being able to visit it and got a little bit of insight, but it was a lot of things about the Franciacorta terroir were surprises to me. So tell me a little bit about its history and its terroir, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lars. Thanks for having us, and thank you, SOMCON, for putting this on. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show you a little bit about Franciacorta's terroir itself, as the geography and especially the geology too is really key to what makes Franciacorta what it is today. So with that, so Franciacorta, we're located in the eastern part of Lombardy, so in northern Italy, and we have a few features that really make up what our area is. And the history itself, to start with, dates back into the 1200s or so. That's when the name Franciacorta came about. The name actually refers to a tax-free status that the Franks, the folks who had ruled this area at the time, had given to the Benedictine monasteries. So the origins of the name and the place, as it kind of is from a boundary standpoint, dates back, nearly 800 years or so. The wines actually, so it's a young region in Italy. We've only been a DOC since 1967, and our oldest wines with bubbles originated in the 1960s as well, in 1961. But actually, we have some records of what they called the wines, the biting wines, or more dice, correct, Lars? The biting wines of this area back to 1570 that were written about. And we've actually published a book in Italian that goes into this history that we'll have out in English from the Consorzio, hopefully this year, maybe next year with all that's going on. But the history of the biting wines is something that kind of deviated from, say, France and how they approached wines that happen to re-ferment and have bubbles. In Franciacorta, they worked diligently to ensure that didn't happen for the next couple hundred years. So we didn't bring the bubbles back until a good bit later. So if you can see the map that's here on the screen, this is the outline of Franciacorta. And the entirety of what we have today was built out on a glacier that kind of rolled down from the pre-Alps into our area. It carved out our lake, Lake Aseo you see in the north of us. It also carved the boundaries and some of the elevated features. But more than just carving out our area, it actually left behind a lot of things that make Franciacorta what it is, specifically the soil. So within our area, we have one unique feature for wines with bubbles in Franciacorta that really nowhere else from a regionality standpoint that's known for sparkling wines has, in that we have a predominantly soil base that is well drained. So our soils are of this moranic origin or glacier based, and they're very well drained, so they don't retain water well. When you think of pretty much any region in the world known for high quality wines with bubbles, you think of soils like chalk, limestone, iron-rich clay, and things like this, soils that retain water really well. And in Franciacorta, we have quite the opposite of that in most of our area. So if you can see the zonation map I have here, all these different colors, those are actually different variations or primary types of glacier-based soils throughout our area. The only place that kind of deviates is at the highest elevations. So when you get to the peaks of Franciacorta, above say 350 or 400 meters, those soils sometimes have that more classic idea of sparkling wine soil, because those are the soils that the glacier didn't bring into the region, but that it actually pushed up as it carved out those little baby mountains we have. The region itself is pretty diverse. It's not very big. We're only about 3,000 hectares, just under 3,000 hectares planted. And at Cotabosco, you can see on this next map, in orange, you'll see the Cotabosco plantings throughout Franciacorta. And in purple, you see all the different plantings. So with what we have in Franciacorta, we do also make still wines in Franciacorta, including what we do at Cotabosco. Those are incorporated in here too, but we don't call those Franciacorta. We have different names for them, whether it be a DOC Corte Franca or an IGT Sabino, but those are all of the different plantings. So what we have here is 121 different producers over about 3,000 hectares represented on this map. In fact, you can see, so high elevation plantings are really interesting in Franciacorta, and we have a few of them at the very top of this map. Near the lake, you see a listing called Belvedere. That's actually the highest elevation vineyard in Franciacorta right now, which is at 466 meters at its peak. So that's actually a Cotabosco vineyard that we've had for about 30 years now, planted to Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And right now that's the highest elevation spot in the whole region. I've got one to show you, Lars, and everyone watching, which is a little replication that we have at the winery that kind of shows the outline of the region and does show you where the elevation is. So most of this region is about 250 or so meters above sea level on average, but you do see some of these peaks here and what our elevation looks like around the lake itself. So.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more, Jacob, to sort of blend in my next two thoughts. Tell us a little bit more about Cotabosco itself, and in that context, what they do at the winery to sort of address and deal with the terroir that comes from those vineyards in Franciacorta.
Absolutely. So Cotabosco, we're one of the older producers in the region, but not quite the oldest. The name itself comes from the first purchase the Zanella family who founded Cotabosco had, which was of the house in the woods, literally ca or casa, the Bosco. Bosco means woods. So in 1964, a woman named Anna Maria Clementi, who are one of our most famous wines is named after, the mother of our founder, Maurizio Zanella, purchased that house in 1964. And a few years later, we planted our first vines. We made our first wine starting in the 1970s. We actually started with still wines for the first few vintages, making Pinot Blanc and moving into Chardonnay and some red grapes too. In 1976, we made our first sparkling wines and have worked really diligently to continually get better at making all of our wines to that time period, and are often seen as a bit of an innovator there. Maurizio Zanella, who founded our property, is still the president and runs the estate today, founded it when he was just a teenager, and was always inspired by the greatest wines of the world. He was inspired to do things not looking at what was happening in his local area, because there wasn't that much happening in Franciacorta at this time. Our region itself was pretty young. And he looked at some of the greatest wine producers in America, in France, in other places, and tried to emulate what they were doing. But there was one thing that we didn't have, which is that with grapes being planted for sparkling wine in Franciacorta only so recently, is that we didn't have this history of understanding the land as well. So something consistent in Cotabosco's path has been that we want to continually make the best wines, but we want to do that respecting the land that we have and accepting that we're still young and there's still so much to learn from the terroir of Franciacorta. So in doing that, everything that we do in the winery, which we do some really engaging and innovative things from a winemaking standpoint, we have something called the berry spa that we incorporated, where we actually wash the grapes to remove heavy metals like copper, sulfur, and things like that that are used in our grape growing process as the grapes come into the winery. But all of these things we do at Cotabosco are all to continue to focus on making the most pure wine possible, to remove things that come from the human element, and to continually work in a way so that we understand each parcel we have and what we understand of our area. So with Cotabosco, our overall mentality is to remove those winemaking features. So our wines are very low oxygen in the entire process, because we believe that oxidation, especially with traditional method sparkling wines, is a touch of the winemaking and something we want to eliminate as much as possible so that you taste the fruit of our region. And our region is a region that embraces fruit really well. We're a bit further south, and our climate does get a little bit warmer than, say, northern France. So we're able to get this total ripeness of both physiological and phenolically with our grapes, that we don't pick underripe grapes to retain acidity. In fact, we have much lower levels of acidity than you might see in northern France. And that to us is an asset and something we want to make sure doesn't get covered up by winemaking, by sulfur, by oxidation, or things like that. It also does allow our wines to be really clean and fresh too, because we don't need a lot of dosage for balance because of that ripeness.
That's cool. So you guys are in Lombardia, Brescia, and from what we hear, what's going on in Italy, that was sort of the hotbed, Brescia, Bergamo area, and Lombardy was one of the areas most impacted. How did that hit you guys? And you obviously, you're a winery, you're vineyards, the map you showed us, you're clearly not in any metropolitan area, so you're a little safer in that sense. But how did it affect the work that's being done in the vineyards and at the winery?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we are very close to, well, you know, this is the most populous part of Italy, the northern part, the Veneto, and we're right near that Veneto border. And we are very fortunate to be a bit in the country. So social distancing and working in that way is something that's possible. We're in the early part of the growing season, so there isn't quite as much that needs to be done in the vineyard itself, but that work that needs to happen is still being able to take place. In fact, this vintage is actually looking to be so far very good. You know, it's very early, but we've actually had a few vintages lately that have had some issues like hail and things like that in April. Yeah. And so far we're looking much better than the last couple of years. So that's really nice for us. We have closed down, for instance, visits. You know, we take visits by appointment at Cotabosco, and that's been something that we aren't able to continue with right now. Our team has been able to stay at home and work from home for the folks that aren't in the vineyards. Folks in the vineyards have been able to do it a little differently than they would have, but still, you know, make sure the land itself is taken care of. So we've made some changes, but everyone's healthy. We haven't had any significant challenges with our team, but they are being very cautious. The ownership of Cotabosco actually made a large donation to the hospital system for the Veneto and the Lombardy region, which is very nice to do what they can to support what's happening there, because this is the area of Italy that has been hit the hardest thus far.
Yep. Well, that's nice, and again, good to hear that we'll have a decent vintage, to something decent to remember this year by. As 2020 comes out. Right
now, as I'm sure everyone on this call is, about how this year will continue.
Absolutely. So we're gonna bring the globe back around full circle and head back to the Americas, and we're gonna deviate a little bit from wine, but we're still talking about terroir. So Chris Radomski, your background is interestingly enough in biology and law, and you focused on international finance, but you got lured, as many of us did, into the wonderful world of wine and got bitten by that bug, wine and spirits, I should say. So you are with Duke as one of the founders there for the whiskey program, and also this wonderful La Adelita. Psalms, I know, as much as they love the terroir of vineyards, they also love the terroir of tequila. So tell us a little bit about your philosophy with La Adelita.
Well, first off, I just want to say hello to everyone listening, to the panelists, obviously to Tasting Panel and Somm Journal. Wish everyone well. You know, I live in the Punta del Este of the United States. It's a place called Miami. I lived around the world, originally Canadian, but I know it's real difficult times. And for anyone else in America, I know maybe Napa Valley and Washington State, depending where you are, you see different effects of it. You know, I was very fortunate 20 years ago to follow a passion that I love in wine. I came in, was one of the original founders of 100 Acre. We developed other brands, and I will say that what was a passion without really knowledge of the business or distribution, on-premise, off-premise, and all those wonderful things sort of grew into a full-time pursuit. And I was very fortunate that I was able to travel the world, and we had an import brand. We started Layer Cake. So, and it was just basically going to regions that, you know, we were able to experience, grow up in Canada. You know, we couldn't afford California wines, and Canadians hate California wines, so they did big duty. My father introduced me to French wines. Obviously, Australian Shiraz is very popular. So we spent time in South Australia, and we ended up in Mendoza. Love South America, Spain, Italy, and a number of different places. So it really gave me a very interesting outlook on what people do in different countries, meeting a lot of wonderful, and sort of understanding the industry and what it was all about. Along the way, I had the opportunity to start distilling, and came across an old recipe, so started working on bourbons in Kentucky.
I apologize for calling it whiskey, by the way. That was bad.
And so as time went on, obviously we had some transactions and family issues and that, and we shifted gears. And I sort of, I want to call it an involvement into a platform now that I run that is multi-branded, but my true heart is wine. And so when I had the opportunity to start looking into tequila, I traveled Mexico extensively, met a lot of different people down there trying to just understand, what the lay of the land was. Obviously there's highland and lowlands in Jalisco, which is a very large area. And I think that over time, even more recently, people in America have understood the nuances in those regions and the importance of terroir in tequila. I think tequila is evolved in the sense that, is evolved from doing the lime, shot on your hand or off another person into something, very exquisite. And having traveled and seen other brands evolve, I've understood how, where things come from. Tequila is very, very, very specifically regulated in Mexico, very regulated, except for the fact that, people pull plants from anywhere. There's really as long as it's a plant, it doesn't really matter. So there are very few tequilas out there that I think are artisanal, that are akin to making a great wine in France or in Uruguay or Napa Valley. So my whole background was single vineyard, preciseness, exactness to quality. And that's really, I was trying to look for an opportunity where I could do this with somebody down there that had a facility and respected terroir. After about 6 years of looking, came across a small group that I partnered with that essentially are a group of people that are from Mexico that love French wines and respected terroir. So, had accumulated great highland plantations in an area called Los Altos, which is southeast of Guadalajara. The higher altitudes tend to produce more fruit-forward tequilas. But the opportunity that I was able to sort of develop was doing what I believe to be a true single estate, single pina, much like we did in Napa Valley, and to that exactness of level. And obviously, pinas take a lot longer to grow, but especially with the explosion of tequila, the raising of the prices of agave and this and that, it's a mishmash. So it's been wonderful to do that and really respect the terroir and understand what it does there. And there are nuances. And, you're looking at a plant that takes 5 to 7 years to mature, as opposed to, if you're harvesting your vineyards, you got a storm coming, you have a heat wave or something else. It affects you much more dramatically. But having said that, there are still, specific specificities and nuances to what goes on down there with some producers. The plantations are about 70 and 100 feet in altitude. And as I said, typically produces pinas of, greater residual sugars. And, there's a big temperature inflection in the mountains as well. Great red soil. So again, now that there are some single estate tequilas out there from the highlands and lowlands, you can actually really taste the differences. And a lot of people put things in their tequila, which, enough don't. But, again, I think we're going towards a market where people are looking at tequila as a spirit that's most akin to wine, based on, the terroir, the viticulture, the growing, and how it's produced. So.
You touched a little bit on the idea of highlands versus lowlands. Are there variations in between, or is it fair to generalize that highlands will be different than lowlands based tequila, and that it's, what are the advantages of having a single vineyard estate from a single vineyard tequila or a single plantation tequila from the highlands as opposed to anywhere else?
Well, just based on my experience, most of the tequilas out there, probably back up a little bit, I would say that probably 2% of the brands that are in existence are truly estate, and spirit drinkers may not know what that means, but as I explain it, from a single estate and sort of a soup to nuts, where one family controls the growing, the picking, the harvesting, the fermentation, the distillation, owns the brand and markets the brand. Very few do that. Most of the brands out there acquire agaves from everywhere. Obviously, the big producers do. And so you get a mix of highlands, lowlands. Now there's a big feeding frenzy on buying agave. So, but if you look at a true lowlands, I think you can tell the difference, but there are very few comparisons out there. But again, they have more minerality, not as much sweetness compared to a highland agave, from, again, based on my experience. But there isn't a lot
That's awesome.
people don't really.
Yep. Well, again, and to your point, it's definitely, tequila is definitely akin to, certainly appeals just as easily to a wine lover. I mean, my great introduction to tequila, I'll give a shout out to Robert Whitley in San Diego for introducing me to really fine tequilas. So awesome. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Now, I know we're going to swing it back to Michelle for some question and answer, but I'm just, as I was going through here, I'm looking at my notes, and I realized that we just passed Earth Day, and I had to throw a question back to Christian about your LEED certification. You're the first winery outside of the U.S. to get that LEED certification. Could you just very briefly give us a concept of what that's all about and what kind of an accomplishment that is?
Well, thanks very much. I went through getting this photo. I'm sharing it again. I'm not sure if is it on?
Sort of.
Sort of. No, not on. Hang on.
I'm seeing half you and half Vineyardscape.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what I tried to do there, but I'm not sure it works. So I just go back to normal. Basically, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, the whole vision of Mr. Bulgaroni is very much sustainability, and it's one of the massive pillars of and the values of Garçon. In the vineyard, we follow very strictly all the philosophy of Alberto Antonini, which we share. And so we don't use chemicals of synthesis. We don't overripe, we don't over oak, we don't over extract. And we try not to imprint the hand of the winemaker. We want to express the place. For that, we use concrete vats. Some of them are shaped like tulips, it'd be like an egg with an open top. And this allows us to express the microflora of Garçon. We actually have identified a unique yeast for Garçon, so it's all wild yeast fermented. The use of oak, we've moved 100% to big bottles, 5,000 liter barrels, where the ratio of wine to oak is, we believe is the best. We use French Allier small grain, but no toast. Again, wanting to express the place, the terroir. Now, this is inside this facility, which on one side has the state-of-the-art winery, gravity flow. So we want to avoid as much as possible any interaction. I think, is the picture on the screen now?
Yes, it is.
All right. So if you see my mouse, everything
yes.
that I'm circling here, basically to the right, is the winery. It's also inside the rock, on the mother rock, on the granite. So we use gravity flow, not much news. But the whole facility is 200 square feet. So it's quite large. It would be 5 acres. And it was designed in about 7 or 8 years ago under the LEED protocols, under the US Green Council. So that's quite visionary. And it was super ambitious in the sense that we wanted to be the first outside the US winery certified, but we went for the full certification of the whole facility. So what that means, in the center here, there are offices and there's an underground billionaires club for Mr. Bulgaroni and his friends. And then on the left, where you see the access and the little lagoons, you have all the hospitality area, which is quite relevant. It's a big pillar for Garçon as well. If you can experience Garçon here, you'll never forget it. So here we have a big restaurant, very beautiful architecture, led by Francis Malman. It seats 120 people. And according to the Cantor magazine, it was rated the best restaurant in a winery in the world last year. All of that is LEED certified. So when you talk about sustainability, it's not, you know, it's not marketing dollars. It's really a commitment of philosophy and really, really long term. The features of the building, it has 80,000 square feet of green roofs. That's the largest green roof in South America. In this picture, you can't see it, but on the left of the winery, there's a natural preserve that Mr. Bulgaroni kept. It's a canyon, it's about 200 acres. From there, we took the plants that we put on the roofs. So there's nine how should you call it, plants that are locally sorry, I think I got out of the screen save. Anyway.
We can still see the picture, but your cursor's not there.
Is it me or is it the picture? I'm not sure. Well, anyway.
The picture is there.
So we use the local plants, and the green roofs allow us to save a ton of money on temperature control, on water treatment, which we obviously recycle and we reuse as much as possible. There's also more than 200, I'm not sure how you say this in English, but lucarnas, roof windows. So we use natural light. Even inside the artificial lakes, we illuminate the cellars. Well, there's many more, but basically to do this, it took about 7 years to build, sourcing the materials from the area, at least 2/3 of them. And it's a massive, massive commitment to the future. Is something that obviously increases your investment by quite a bit, but you end up recovering by saving energy, and in about 50 years, you have your payback like a normal building. But it's a big pleasure. It's a massive challenge. When I interviewed with Mr. Bulgaroni in 2014, I have to tell you, it's the first time I heard about LEED. So this has been a huge challenge, not just of this new world terroir and 21st century terroir. It's fascinating to work with Antonini. It's the total learning curve, hospitality with Francis Malman, and having someone with the vision of Don Alejandro is, I don't know, it's a lot of people that have been there consider it one of the best projects in the world. So thanks for asking.
Congratulations on that LEED. Thank you, Christian. I'm gonna throw one more question back to Chris about tequila. Obviously, distilleries work on a little bit different rhythm, a little different timeline than wineries do. But in terms of the shutdown, I know Mexico has been a little bit different in terms of how they've addressed the virus and the quarantine. Has this impacted the distillery at all? And you know, I think every Somm wants to make sure there's not going to be a tequila shortage soon.
No, you know, fortunately, the region that where they are, there really wasn't. Well, there was a mandated area of interruption, but it was very brief. I think Mexico City was more hard hit simply because
density, population density.
Travelers come back to Mexico City, so there was minor effect there. I know that we're doing a bottling in 2 weeks. So I've been battling getting a bunch of labels that we produce in Sonoma and Portland sent down there. So other than the trucking issues getting in, it really hasn't been. But you know, we're trying to provide for, you know, hopefully what we see as the going back to life slowly here in America. I'd say that's the biggest issue for us. You know, our brands are very heavy on premise. Being younger brands, you know, without a major retail presence. So I think that's the biggest thing, to be honest. We've done a lot of things locally to support bartenders. We were one of the first to go out and do a bartender tip program, you know, and same thing with the Tequila Project, creating a big base of, you know, we're hiring, we paid probably about 400 bartenders around the country to, you know, help them get cash and do things like that. So, but Mexico has not been. In fact, they keep emailing me saying, what's going on? We need our stuff. Come on, we're on the timeline. So there's been no interruption there, compared to Kentucky, where the distillery in Kentucky, other than the distillation process, which, we have a lot of bourbon, everything got closed down, the bottling, the shipments. So in a time when obviously an order is very crucial from a distributor, if you can't fulfill the order, that just complicates the issue. So I'd say the problems we've had have been 95% stateside.
Okay. All right. Well, I know we're over time and whatnot, and we have some questions out there, but I'm just going to throw one more. Pardon me, Michelle, but I'm just going to ask Marnie very quickly to give us speaking about getting some aid to the trade. Can you give us a nutshell how people can tune into that ambassador program that JC was speaking of?
Absolutely. I'm just going to put the link again in the chat box.
Great.
I had pasted it earlier, but this is a program that is essentially outreach to people in hospitality who are looking for another income stream right now. This is a program that we have that people can work on a very flexible schedule because it's an independent contractor relationship. Essentially, what Boisset Collection does is we've collected some of the top wines from our top wineries. We have 20 wineries in France and California, but we select 150 of our favorite top wines. And we have over 1,600 independent Boisset ambassadors around the country who, what they do is that they are able to have their own personal version of our e-commerce website and all of the digital tools for managing their business that come along with that subscription. And they're able to essentially earn commissions on facilitating sales that are fulfilled by the wineries. So ambassadors do not hold inventory. They are not licensed by the state. It's all done by Boisset. We maintain the website. We make fantastic wines, and you guys can go out and sell them to your own network. We have a corporate program for non-licensed businesses, for those who do corporate gifting and so on. There's extraordinary things that people can do with e-commerce, having their own amazing wines that they can sell. So if anybody's interested, click through to that link. We put together a page for those of you in the hospitality trade to try and answer your questions and see if this might be a good solution for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's a great program. Michelle, I'm going to throw the ball back to you. A little bit delayed, but thank you for your patience too.
No problem, Lars. I think we've had some really amazing input and information from all of the panelists. And I think that we probably have time maybe for one question that will work for each of our panelists. So I'm going to jump into that. But before I do, I wanted to let everyone know that we've had a lot of questions come in on the Q&A that we just don't have time to get to. So what we're actually going to do is send those questions out to our panelists after our discussion. We'll ask all the panelists to respond, and then we'll post that in our resource section, so that way everyone's responses get addressed. And Lars will make sure that you have those too. I also just want to do another thank you to the tasting panel and the Somm Journal, to the Banfi Foundation and Boisset Collection, as well as all of the other individual contributions that came in today. Because of our partnership on the Somm Relief Project, we will be making our first donation to the United Sommeliers Foundation. But in addition, for any organizations or individuals who wish to also apply for some assistance through the Somm Relief Project, you can also go to sommconusa.com for more information there. And then just one final note before I ask our final question. I want to make sure that everyone still with us, you will be getting a survey from us. And if you can take a few minutes to respond to that, we're always looking for how we deliver really good content to everybody and continue to improve. So Lars, if okay, I think the final question that I'd like to leave with is really maybe just kind of tapping on to what Marnie was sharing and what Boisset Collection does and the programs that they have available for sommeliers. I think that, again, our colleagues who who are furloughed are looking for opportunities to augment their income. There are some questions that have come in about what does the future of employment look like for SOMs, and what kind of opportunities might exist either through apprenticeships or internships at producers' locations, and what does that look like? So maybe that's an opportunity for each of our panelists to contribute, and we'll close from there.
Sure. Anybody who wants to take a first crack at that? Go ahead, Christian.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, cool. We've done a few things. We've kind of recycled our hospitality team. We go through about 25,000 visitors. So we have a team of about 35 people between both kitchens, the normal one and the fire kitchens, Malman style, the restaurant and tourism. We've kind of recycled their functions during this period. The SOMs are actually contacting the main guests, and they're working with our trade marketing, shifting our business from on-premise to basically e-commerce, and being proactive and calling people up, and a quarantine package with free delivery and things like that. The chef Ricky Mota went on a trip and did amazing recipes from his house, different recipes that you can. It's kind of the garçon cooking, the Malman fires, but at home. So stay at home, and we posted that on social media, and it had a massive liking, I think about 30,000 views or something. And then we have other people who just basically went to work in the winery. Some of the waiters, some of the people in the kitchen. So we have helped our team that way. In the community, we're basically buying a lot of our clients have difficulties paying. So it's obviously in on-premise. So we're taking back the inventory to release the pressure, the financial pressure. And at the same time, we're buying coupons for when they reopen, to help them reopen. So Garçon will invite people to certain accounts. And
it's like gift certificates.
Exactly, like gift certificates. And also there's a pretty big movement where Mr. Bulgaroni and Bodega Garçon is part of, where the private sector have started raising capital to buy COVID-19 testers, to get ambulances with the CTU, intensive care units, and the monitors and the respirators and masks. We've raised almost $6 million, which for Uruguay is a lot of money. And, there, some of our staff has, helps move things around. Uruguay is a developing country, so outside of Montevideo, I would say even in Punta del Este, the facilities are not great. So we help people in the interior of the country. So we've been very active, and we'll look into supporting the SOMs in around the world as much as possible. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for them to get education. Through Pacific Highway Wines, we've been doing this thing. Angela Slade came up, the fireside chat, which is, I think, is Mr. Roosevelt's way of talking to world leaders during the Second World War. And there we've been talking to wholesalers, we've been talking to some of our SOMs and training. It's a great opportunity to study. I'm not studying very much, but if they're out of a job, it's a great opportunity to learn and to do online tastings. We've done, I've made Alberto Antonini get up in Tuscany at midnight to do a masterclass with the SOMs in Sao Paulo. So, we get them the Alvarinho and the Tanat, single vineyards, for example, and he tastes live. And, it's work in progress, but there's definitely a new normal there, and it's out there for you to grab it. You need to keep optimistic and working very hard.
Awesome. Charlie, Jacob, either of you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I can chime in. little bit.
crystal ball it?
So with Carabasco, we're in America from our sales standpoint, there are some things we can do and not do with the legalities of such. But recently, our importer, Santa Margarita USA, actually just made a donation of $75,000 to the National Restaurant Association's Employee Relief Fund. And they're looking at more things to do along those lines. So we're trying to support different organizations that help folks in the on and off premise channels as much as possible in this time, as well as doing things like this wherever we can help with education in this time of need. And we have a bit more time available for it, so where we can be of help there. But we are looking at how we can help financially. I wish we could do things like what Christian described with maybe taking back inventory or things like that. That might be nice, but in America with the three-tier system, we're trying to find as many creative, effective ways as possible. And our importer's been really helpful with navigating that particular situation.
Okay, thank you. Unless anybody else wants to chime in on that, I'm going to ask Michelle what else you got. Oh, yeah, Chris.
Hi, I think it's great what everyone's doing. We did I partnered with a Michelin star chef here in Miami and a great friend of mine, and we delivered 100 gourmet dinners to hospitals yesterday. Incredible.
That's awesome.
Tequila, which the hospital CEOs, when they found out about that, they got a little nervous, so they said, put those in the back door. But I was asked is, why are you doing this? I said, well, everybody is. I think it's great what everyone's doing. And, obviously everyone has different financial capabilities, what they can handle. But for our tequila, which is the namesake is based on a very legendary woman who led the Women's Charge in the Revolution. So we have a big outreach called the Adelita Army, where we're looking to hire probably 150 bartenders across the country to give them a form of employment, during this difficult time, and promote a really good platform of, healthy drinking and responsibility and things like that. And, I think the environment here is changed. I know that a lot of distributor reps have been furloughed, especially on premise. And if you're an emerging brand and if you're not a giant contender, it's going to be very interesting. So I think you have to look for different ways to do it. And really, I think supporting people is really important to what you can do. So I commend everyone for what you're doing. And I'm going to be emailing for a trip down to Uruguay very shortly.
Great.
Just give us a date. We will give you some of the best hospitality out there, and maybe you can help us. We're rolling out now what we call the Héroes, heroes, and we're looking about really special things people are doing. There's a soprano that sang to all the medical staff and police people and a lot of people. And she just killed it. She had like the city or a few blocks of Montevideo were listening to her. And basically what we do is we just, we give her a bottle of Method Champenoise and our recognition, and she's like a hero of this pandemic. Just trying to keep the motivation up, but you're all welcome to visit. This is a great part of the world. And the wines
I'll sing for wine.
The wines are okay. The wines are worth the trip.
Fantastic.
So Lars, just jumping in, I think Charlie or Tim, if you have anything else you'd like to add. Charlie, I saw your mouth moving, but you're on mute, so let me unmute you here real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie. Hold on one second. Muted. I think I need our tech to unmute you, or if you can unmute yourself.
There he is.
This has been really fun. Beautiful wineries, beautiful tequila projects going. We're as far as what we're doing around the winery ourselves to keep our guys busy. We've shuffled. We're not a big operation, but we've taken people that would normally be on the bottling line. We've moved some folks out to the vineyard so they can keep their jobs going until we get the bottling line going full speed again. people that we've taken the opportunity to remodel things. So people that aren't necessarily carpenters are having an opportunity to work on remodeling tasting rooms and things, just trying to keep everybody busy. You know, we're continuing to make donations to our Alzheimer's research and our breast cancer research and stuff. And we're just all working to get through these things with hopes to opening that tasting room again soon. So thanks a million.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And Tim, I know you're part of the greater Banfi family, which has done a lot of the great donations, including to the Somme Relief Fund. But what's going on in your winery?
So we are still, as an essential facility, thankfully, we are still operational. All functions are still going on here, including bottling. And during harvest, well, as much as possible, we are rotating the bottling line people back into the main facility. During harvest, we do bring 2 of the bottling people or 3. We run a lean team here. I think there's 8 of us total, including office staff. During harvest, we're 1 to 3 more people maximum. So not a very big crew. But we do source from the bottling line first. I think the biggest project we've done recently, though, was to donate over 3,000 gallons of wine for a distillation that went to hand sanitizer for a local hospital. So that's the biggest project we've done recently.
Very cool.
Great.
All right. Martin, did you have anything else to add on that?
Not really. I mean, we are very much focused on trying to keep the community together. As you probably know, Jean-Charles recently acquired Oakville Grocery in the heart of Napa Valley and has been using that outlet as a way to try and support the wine country community with discounted delivery and pick up at curbside and picking up food for people who are really stuck. We have a much larger staff at Boisset, as you can probably imagine, with the number of wineries. So our community has really been coming together and trying to keep each other's spirits up. Many of them unavoidably are laid off at the moment, especially the tasting room staff, but we are keeping very much everyone who's in operations and active. But one of the things Jean-Charles has been doing has been trying to keep in touch with our community. He is getting out in front of, I think every day we're doing happy hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, we are doing outreach to our folks in the trade. And we are really just trying to keep people connected because, you know, the circumstances may separate us, but honestly, it's not water that divides the people of the world. Right now, it's coronavirus. And what we can do to try and stay connected is to, you know, still socialize. And wine is one way that we can do that, even if it's virtually through Zoom.
Great.
Well said.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up here for us, Lars. But I just, again, wanted to say thank you to everyone for being here with us today. You know, I think that what we keep telling our community is really, you know, we do what we can when we can. And so the small contributions lead to big contributions. And so for everything, even the small acts of kindness that people are doing, it really goes a long way. Just as a reminder too, you know, for colleagues out there who weren't able to join us today, this has been recorded. It's available to everyone and anyone who would benefit. And you can get the link to that at somconusa.com. So thank you everyone again for being with us. We appreciate you and your time and have a wonderful day.
And tune in on May 20th for Italy.
Yes. Thank you, Lars.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
God save America.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.